I'm not going to steal a lot of the limelight, as Tracy is going to be doing the majority of the talking, and she's really going to be covering a fantastic presentation on 10 tips on fixing your broken relationship with SharePoint. And as Melinda said, definitely one of our favorites. She's done this presentation at a number of conferences around the world, so it's really, really exciting to have you all with us today. So a really quick intro, and I'm going to do what I do best and give an intro on who GT is for those of you who don't know us. So we really do have presence just about worldwide these days, with offices across the US and partner channel across the US, both East Coast and West Coast. We do a lot of work around London, the UAE, and really where we started in South Africa with offices spread across the country. The company itself, we're made up of over 35 developers now, 63 happy clients, and 100% of dedication. We really love what we do and are really passionate about our technologies as well as our customer base. So what is it that we do? And we are a SharePoint everything company. We like to enable productivity, and we do about all areas of SharePoint, both the standard sort of consulting across all those various areas, and we've got a number of in-house built solutions, productivity solutions that we take to market, as well as a couple of vendor and third-party products. But more importantly, and what we're going to be covering today, is the GT Academy, and some history on the GT Academy, which we launched about 2 years ago. And the idea behind it was that we were building all these incredible solutions and addressing a lot of business needs within organizations, but found that it was very difficult for companies to show return of investment and get value out of these solutions without empowering the end users and giving them the knowledge they need in order to utilize these solutions to their full capacity. So the idea was to create an academy where we don't necessarily cover the administration training, but really focus on enabling the business user from introduction to SharePoint, to what is SharePoint, all the way to training up the users that they become super users who can manage the platforms on their own. So in order to achieve this, we needed a training superstar, someone that could bring a different spin and utilize years and years of experience in change management and user enablement by putting together the relevant courses that we offer today. And that person was no other than Tracy van Schyff. We've known her for many years and seen the really great things that she's been doing in the industry, and she now heads up our academy, and all of the courses, content, and strategic drive behind it is all her work. So we're really, really super excited to have her on board, and I'm going to hand you straight over to Tracy to help you mend your relationship with SharePoint. So Tracy, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Warren, and hi to everyone. So while I'm just getting ready to start presenting my screen, as Melinda said as well, it's so awesome having us all around and actually having people having the ability for us to share this tonight. I just want to say as a little bit of a disclaimer before you start seeing my presentation, is that no code was hurt in the making of this presentation, which is always very important to me. And the only third-party tool that I used was PowerPoint. I think that's the closest I'll ever get to PowerShell, most probably. But here we go. I just want to open. There we go. So hold on. I just want to move my screen. Okay. So my talk tonight is something that's quite close to my heart. It's something that I've been working on for many years, and I've been so fortunate to be able to do this with GT Consult. And it's definitely about the people. It's not about the technology. So tonight's talk is about fixing that relationship, obviously, and a couple of tips I want to give you guys to actually go back and see how you can look at the environments that you work in and the people that you work with and the solutions that you build with different eyes. So first up, we'll just look at the session info. So are you finding yourself in a long-term relationship with SharePoint and it's not working? I hear this very often, being a trainer as well, getting feedback. Everyone says the same thing. At some point it was nice in the start, but something's gone wrong. So in the session, as I've covered and Warren mentioned as well, we are going to look at a 10-pointer checklist to help you to fix those relationships. And hopefully this will help you and enable you to assess and adjust your current situation and rekindle that love affair. So I really would like you guys to leave this session tonight and actually go back and look at what it is that you have in your environments, and not just SharePoint, not just technology, but actually look at what you do every day and what it is that you're trying to establish, and take a better look at it. And hopefully we can then go mundane to meaningful, obviously, in no time. So session index, we are going to cover all of these, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. We're going to look at what goes wrong, and obviously we'll work through the 10 steps as we go on. So for those of you who don't know me, Cupcake kind of like features and pretty much everything that I do. So it's just a little bit of a term of endearment. So what am I saying is what is it that is going wrong in our environments? What is it that we are doing wrong in what we do every day? And I'm going to try, and it's obviously quite difficult not getting feedback, looking at your faces and knowing if you're nodding and agreeing with me, but I'm pretty sure that we all are going to be on the same place when we start looking at what it is that goes wrong in our environments. So the first point I want to touch on is whether or not you're finding yourself in a position of looking at other platforms. Maybe you've gotten bored with SharePoint and you're starting to fantasize a bit about other software. Everything else is looking shiny and you're thinking, maybe that's a good idea, maybe that's the road I want to take. So the first thing I see that's going wrong is that we start having wandering eyes. The next thing up is the fighting. Now that's not just fighting between yourself and between SharePoint. It's fighting IT versus business. It's fighting with each other. And if we look at the platforms and we look at the things that we deal with every day, are we starting to get to a point where we just disagree about everything? There's no common ground. We can't seem to see eye to eye anymore. And hopefully you are experiencing this in your environments as well. So fighting, big thing that happens all over, not just SharePoint. Next step up is lack of communication. There we go. So what do I mean with lack of communication when I talk about technology? Again, I'm not just talking about technology. I'm talking about the relationships that they exist between IT and between business. So have we stopped talking to each other? Are we not bridging those gaps? Are we not agreeing on things? Are we not talking the same language anymore? Definitely something that I see every day in the feedback that I get from users as well, that we've stopped talking to each other. The focus is so hard just on to deliver and to get the output out there that we've actually stopped communicating what's important to us. Next, very, very important one, and I've been guilty of this, so even if you guys don't think that you've been guilty of this, I think we all have in some odd ways. Do you tell lies about SharePoint to cover up your own insecurities or flaws? Something I always say to people is that when something goes wrong, if someone blames someone else, we have to realize that we're all just human. And sometimes we do that because we're scared to show who we are or what our flaws are, or we're just too afraid to admit that we don't know how to do something. Always remember that everyone's human and everything is about emotion. So if you start telling lies about SharePoint to cover up your own insecurities or flaws, or if the users are doing it, what are we doing wrong? Why is this actually happening in our environments? Another one of my favorites, familiarity. So, do you miss how you felt the first time you opened your SharePoint home page? Are you tired of looking at that same page month after month? So this happens in a lot of companies. They launch this amazing new intranet, shiny with bells and whistles and moving web parts and animations and things. And it's just so super. Everyone loves it, and then nothing changes. And within 6 months or a year, you just don't feel that buzz anymore. You're just not excited about that relationship anymore. This is something that happens everywhere. Again, I see this every day. I speak to users. This is exactly how they feel. This is how I've felt. I've worked for a lot of companies. I felt like that about the solutions and the intranets that we work on. So that's just a couple of the problem areas that I've lifted out. And the question I have now is, so what does this have to do with SharePoint? If I talk about relationships and I talk about emotions and I talk about things that we do wrong as people, how am I actually pulling this whole thing back to SharePoint? Oh, I see that thing doesn't go away. So relationships and partners. If we look at relationships, what does the dictionary say? It says that it's a way in which two or more concepts, objects or people are connected, or the state of being connected. That sounds quite familiar if you ask me. If I then move on and we go to the next step and we say, what is a partner? So a partner is a person who takes part in an undertaking with another or others, especially in a business or a company where you have shared risks and profits. If I go to the next step, again, just taken from the dictionary, we will be looking at commitment. So what does commitment mean? It's a state or quality of being dedicated to a cause, activity, and etc. So if I look back at those three things, if I look back at what a relationship is, so the way concepts, objects, people, processes are connected. What is a partner? It's someone who takes part in an understanding or an undertaking with others. So especially in business, and especially where there's shared risks and profits, what is commitment? It's the state of quality of being dedicated to a cause. And that to me doesn't just sound like love relationships. That sounds to me like something that I do every day. That's the commitment that I have to the people that I work with, to my clients, customers, to the people that I train. That's the commitment that we have to each other. And that's why I've decided that this is how SharePoint works for me. And that's why it is like a relationship to me. So something that I've heard so often, and it frustrates me, is that people say it's not personal, it's business. And they couldn't be further from wrong, because everything is personal. Even if it's business and even if there's money involved, it's always personal, because it's people that make things happen. We're the enablers who make things happen. Even if you have workflows and solutions, there's still people in that mix who make things happen. So for me, the statement it's not personal, it's business, doesn't make sense at all. For me, it's all about the people. So this is a step we've taken, and you'll see a bit later in my presentation when I come to the road that we've taken with the Academy. This is where I've come to a point and I've said, okay, so how do we fix this? We've kind of identified what the things are that can go wrong. We've actually identified with the things that other people identify with. We're saying that we are doing those same things. So if we all agree on those things that are we doing wrong, what is it? What is the first step we have to take to actually make this better? And for me, as in any relationship, you need to get to the point where you commit and say, I do. Whether it is I do, I want to fix this, I do commit to this, I do, I want to be part of this, but maybe we need to just take that step back and say, I'm actually making a commitment to making this thing work. I want to see this through. I want us all to be part of this and make it work. So this is a very, very big part of where I am in my life, in the Academy, in the business that I do, in the training that I do every day, is making that commitment, making the commitment to my people who attend the training and to everyone around me. So that's the first step. And it's not part of your checklist. Even before the checklist starts, this is the first thing that I feel that we have to do. Now this brings me to what do we do now? We know that we have flaws. We know we're messing up. We keep on making the same mistakes. So we know we have to commit, but how do we commit? What is that? Someone just needs to give us a checklist and say, there we go, Trace, there's the 5 things you need to do, and you'll be beautiful and skinny and perfect and famous and wealthy. We all just want a checklist because it's so much easier if we have that. And that's what I've tried to do in this presentation, is put something together to actually help you guys go back and say, what is my checklist and what is it that I want to achieve? So we're going to go to the 10 steps. And before we go to the 10 steps, I would like to just recap the couple of things that I've lifted out and said, what is it that we're doing wrong? I'm going to go through these very quickly, but I said that firstly, people get a wandering eye. They start looking at other solutions before they even know if the solution that they have is compatible or not. At the first sight of something going wrong, we tend to jump to the next solution. We just don't stick it in there anymore. People don't have that dedication anymore to stick it in and make it work. So the next one that I said was fighting. We all know what that's about. Are we fighting with SharePoint? Are we fighting with IT? Are we fighting with business? Next one up is lack of communication. Are we into that mode now where we just do things and we've stopped taking a pause and making sure that we're doing the right things? So are we doing the right things for the right reasons, or are we just doing things because we have to do them. Next up after that, lying. One of my favorites. Users always laugh at this because we all do this, and it's because we're just human, we're just scared. And maybe someone hasn't taken that time to help you to be a better person, to learn the skill that you need to learn so that you can stop lying about the things that's wrong and be a better person in SharePoint or in the environments that you work. So lying definitely up there. Familiarity, how do we fix that? That's definitely something that we all suffer with. We have the solution now, we've gotten tired of it, we want something new and shiny. We all do it. It's not just in our personal lives, we do it in business and in what we do every single day. So, let's go back to the 10 steps. The 10 steps that I've kind of put together, and of course there can be so many more, but is that I want us to understand the reasons behind the breakup. Now, I'm not going to go through this now. I'm going to go through the slides, but there's 10 of them. We will come back to this and we will recap it. The first one we are going to look at is to understand the reasons behind the breakup. Because even though you might still have SharePoint, you've reached a point where there's a, am I going to stay or am I going to go? So what do I mean by understanding the reasons behind the breakup? So if something goes wrong in your life, the first thing you should do is take a step back, breathe deeply, make a list of the things that you've identified that went wrong, that didn't work, so that you can actually visualize what it is that you did wrong and don't do it again. So if I think of understanding the reasons behind the breakup, I'm saying you're going to have to do a bit of analysis on that SharePoint site of yours or on that intranet or that solution. You're going to have to get some feedback because maybe what you think's wrong isn't the thing that's wrong. Maybe it's time for us to also take a step back and ask the people who actually use the solutions. So get feedback. Document those findings. If you don't work in an environment that works with compliance or maybe is ISO compliant or you have other compliant type of things that you certify for, you still have to document your findings. So why do we have to do this? So that you have something that you can fall back on and go look back at and say, we fixed those things. If you don't document, you won't have anything. Something that I always show my users is what a screen would look like if you had to go to Bing or to Google and you had to search for, let's say you searched for SharePoint and it returned no results. Imagine that, if it returned no results if you had to search for something. And that's exactly what would have happened if everyone was as lazy as I am most of the time when it comes to documenting things. If people didn't document things, we wouldn't be able to learn, we wouldn't be able to search, browse the web and get information. So maybe we all have to start doing that in our work environments as well and start documenting those findings that you've got and that was wrong so that you have a checklist that you can tick off. Lessons learned, important, especially on projects as well, but even in this little breakup exercise that you're going through. What is the lessons that you've learned? What doesn't work? People don't like emails, or they don't like pop-ups, or they don't like the green color on the landing page, but go document those as well. Again, put procedures in place to prevent it. Once you've documented those things and you've looked at the findings and everything, what are you going to put in place to actually fix it? How are you going to do it? And remember, this doesn't have to be perfect from the start. So don't put that pressure on yourself. Build a wiki page library and start making notes and build on it every day as you go on. So that's the understanding the reasons behind the breakup. It's a very, very important step. I want you to also then, once you've documented those things, I want you to go and look at renewing the commitment. Do you want to make this work? And if you've said, I do, I want you to put that effort in to make it work, no matter how hard it's going to be. Make that effort. Tell yourself 10 times that I'm going to make the SharePoint site work. I'm going to make this intranet work. I'm going to make users want to use this site. I'm going to really strive for people to adopt this thing, but make that commitment. Even if you have to document it so that you can put it down somewhere and say that this is my commitment towards my job and towards SharePoint, but go and make that commitment. The next tip I want to give you is about forgiveness, and I think this is so much bigger than SharePoint. This is just a life thing. If we think of forgiveness, because when you start document those things and you're looking at your site and what's gone wrong, something that's going to happen is you're going to get mad because that kind of like gets the funnies out of the cracks, okay? And what you have to realize is that everyone's not perfect. You have to, again, take a step back and say, I'm going to forgive that person and that person for misleading us or not telling us we were making a mistake. Because if you stick onto those things that's gone wrong, you'll never move on with that site and you'll never make a success of what it is that you're doing. So you have to really go out and forgive the people, forgive the solution, forgive whatever didn't work. Burn the bridge, let it go. Commit now to actually make it better. Because if we keep on looking back and saying that consultant overcharged us and built a horrible solution and that person didn't pick the right colors, then we're always going to just stay stuck in the past and we'll actually never make a great success of it. Here's another good tip, is changing yourself. So once you've started looking at all those things, you've documented it, you've looked at your lessons learned, what do I mean by changing yourself? Because it's not just you, it's IT, it's business, it's SharePoint, it's the users, it's the consultants. What do I mean by changing yourself? Is when we say we want to change ourselves to be a better person, if I think physically, what do I think about when I talk about solutions? Is training users. If you skill those people up and you get a lean, mean machine and you start getting going, you'll be able to reach your goals. So set those goals, stick to it, skill the users up. That's exactly what I mean with changing yourself. Next up is keeping your promises. Very close to my heart, and this happens every day in IT. Is we kind of don't stick to promises, do we? And maybe it's because we promise too easy. Maybe it's not because we don't stick to promises. Maybe we overpromise. So when you then make those promises, when you go back to the exco or the board or the users and you say, guys, we're going to make this work. By March, we want to have this in place. And by April, we want to have that in place. You've got to work hard to keep those things working. And when there's little things that happens, just be honest with them. So don't keep things to yourself and then not be able to deliver those promises. So I want you to really make a point of delivering what it is that you'll say. Don't create expectations, and that's why documentation is so important. Don't promise them the Ferrari if you'll only deliver, and I won't be able, I'm going to say Mazda because I drive a Mazda before I step on toes. So do not overpromise and do not create expectations. Rather, stick to what it is that you think you can deliver, because then you can reach and keep those promises. Communication, as in anything in life. So communication, big thing. When it comes to change management, when it comes to user adoption, when it comes to training, if it comes to solutions, it's the most important thing in the world is communication. You have to start realizing that your users are your biggest assets. I always say that lady working in HR who irritates me all the time because she deletes her icons on her desktop or something. I will never ever forget that that's the girl who pays my salary. So you have to remember that those people are important enough to share what you're busy with, what your successes are, and what your failures are with as well. If you keep them in the dark, they will not buy into your solutions and they will not take ownership of it. So communicate, pull up a communication plan, communicate on a regular basis, give them feedback. Even if you fail, tell them, guys, we didn't make this month's deadline because of so-and-so, and we're going to try and fix it and carry on. Because that makes you human and it makes things tangible and reachable. So reach out to the people, communicate, share the vision. Every single company that I've trained have said to me, and I'm talking about the users, that they do not know what the vision of the company is towards SharePoint. Every single company. I've not met one person who's told me that they understand what the vision is in the company. Biggest mistake we make. So we don't even buy into it that it's one of the strategic ideas of the company. So defining the relationship, very, very important. So when you've put all those things in place and you're starting to fix this thing up that's gone broken, you have to define that relationship. This is all about SLAs. This is all about documentation. It doesn't have to be 40 pages with fancy footers and things. I absolutely love wiki pages because it's like a book that I can build with my users, with my forums. Look at your governance plan. This is not just technical stuff, people. Governance plan are books or pages or documents that protects users as well. You can't fight with people if they don't know what's expected from them and they don't know what they're not allowed to do. Document those things and remember that it'll grow. Don't take a year before you put your governance plan out because you want it to be perfect. Rather put a 60% fit out there and start working on it and update it as you go. Because believe me, in a year's time, your mind will change about what you think the governance of the company is as you start putting content into that site. So look as well at what the connection and the association is between the different parties. Again, I'm talking about SLAs. How does consultants work with each other? How does the users interact with super users? How do they interact with the forums? How do they interact with IT or the technical team? Go and document those roles and responsibilities, because that causes havoc. People step on toes because they're not sure where the responsibility starts and the responsibility ends. Document all of these things in wiki pages. Go do a permissions plan. Go do a training plan. Go do a communication plan. I promise you, you'll build that thing, you'll add onto it every day, and it'll become the Bible or the book that you manage that site by, but it'll grow with your site. There is no intranet that starts with a perfect governance plan in place. It doesn't work like that. It's got to grow with the users. It's got to grow with the solution. So you've got to define your relationship so that you can define the responsibilities, but also remember that things like that protect people. We have to protect people. People get hurt in work environments every day because they didn't know they weren't allowed to do something. They didn't know they were supposed to do something. So take that step and go define your relationship. Another step there is keeping the fire burning. And how do we do that with solutions? How do we keep that fire burning? So quick wins. Why start with a big bang? I see companies do it all the time. They work months and months on delivering this absolutely amazing solution, and then nothing happens after that. Why don't you start smaller? Why don't you do quick wins? Every month roll something small out. And that might be one of the biggest mistakes that we make, that we think that a small solution to roll out is some workflow thing and some fancy thing that does automates processes. Believe me, for people that just work with SharePoint every day without all the fancy stuff that we used to, even rolling out a favorites links web part to them next month where they can add their own favorites on the home page, or maybe the month after that have a nice calendar thing that they can use, or show them how wiki pages work. We've forgotten how amazing SharePoint is out of the box. We've gotten too fancy. There's so many small amazing things in SharePoint that we can roll out on a regular basis, and the users will love you for it. So look at small iterative changes. I'm a big believer in that. Start small, build it up, improve the process as you go on. Look at exciting things that you can do every month. It doesn't have to be big, expensive things. Newsletters are important. Campaigns are important. Community is important. Forums are important because it keeps the vibe going. It keeps people talking. And that's exactly what I mean with keeping the fire burning in SharePoint. So compatibility and compromise, also very important. And because there's so many parties that are involved in this whole SharePoint process, if we look at consultants, we look at third-party platforms and applications as well. We are looking at users, at end users, at super users, at leaders of forums. We're looking at business. We're looking at Exco. So how do we determine whether something is compatible or not? So we should be looking at those external factors. We should be looking at whether those platforms and software that we are using is compatible. A lot of times we just focus on the SharePoint bit, but we've forgotten that something doesn't work very well with Outlook, or something is not working well with I don't know, Visio or something else that the guys might be using. Don't ever forget that there's a bigger world out there, but not SharePoint. And sadly, what tends to happen is SharePoint gets planned. So if you don't do your homework, if you don't look at what sits around SharePoint and you don't have enough knowledge about it, you've got to be very careful because we tend to be blind when it comes to SharePoint. So go and look at where it is compatible or not. And then very importantly is see if you can reach a compromise. Is there a way that we can say, okay, Oak, so that doesn't work. What else can we put in place here that does work? Everything in life is pros and cons. If you give them something good, they'll be okay with something else that doesn't work that good. But be honest, document it, be upfront with them so that they understand. Next one is growing together. It's again a big relationship thing. Okay, so this is all about that iterative change as well that I was speaking about. So no relationship starts out perfect. This idea that people have that you got to like do this project and it's perfect and then you roll it out. So something that's important is that perfection only comes over time and with over time. It takes time and it takes a lot of effort to get to perfection. And no one will ever get to perfection. Don't make that mistake, because as you get to the point where you think it's perfect, something new's come out, something better that you can do. So something that's very important for me with these sites is when you start fixing things is that we have to grow the maturity of the users while the maturity of the site grows. If you roll out solutions that are too big and too flashy, the guys are lost. They've never been skilled up. They can barely use their own PCs. They're not that great in Excel. They're not that good at PowerPoint. And now we're throwing another big solution in SharePoint at them. We have to grow the maturity of the users while the maturity of the business and the maturity of the processes grow. That's a very, very, very important thing for me. So the 10 steps, we can all look back at that. I said we have to understand the reasons behind the breakup. We have to renew the commitment. Forgiveness, forgiveness, forgiveness. You have to change yourself, and what I meant there is not just yourself, it's also upskilling users. It's also making things lean machines. You have to keep your promises. Communication is very important. You have to redefine the relationship. You've got to keep that fire burning. Compatibility and compromise, and then growing together. Now for me, this is so typical of me to do a presentation and I end up not even talking about SharePoint. For me, this is what life's about. And everything you do in life, if we can't have different values, guys, we can't come home and have different values with our kids, a different set of values and a different way of being honest and of being good to each other and not do it at work. And then we don't understand why the solutions that we build and the business that we do every day doesn't work. If you can't follow these steps that you do in your personal life at business as well and with users as well and with the solutions that you do, I honestly feel that that's the reason why we keep on failing. We have different sets of values. Nothing changes when you add money to it. You still have to have the same commitment and we still deal with people. So that's very important for us to remember that. Now, I want to share something very personal with you because I'm nearly at the end of my slide deck. I want to explain to you what it is that changed my way of thinking. And I'm specifically talking about the last 2 years. So I've been fighting this battle for many years where I've been saying to people that we're doing something wrong. We're training people wrong. We're charging them for training that's not adding value. These kids are coming back all the time again and they still don't have a clue of what's going on. So I'd really like to share that little personal bit with you and explain to you what it is that changed in the way that I think. So I don't know how many of you know what ikigai means, and I'm going to explain it to you now. And yes, I definitely did this so that I could bring a picture of my beautiful bike into the presentation. So everyone meet my Ducati Monster. Her name is #ikigai, so that I can search her on the web. But that's ikigai, and ikigai was a gift that I bought myself last year to celebrate a certain place that I'd reached in my life. So ikigai means the following. In Japanese, it means that there's this place, this reason for being. It's that thing that you get up for every morning, that thing that makes you tick. And that's a pretty awesome thing, as they say that if you get to the point where that which you love, that what you are good at, that's what you get paid for, and that what the world needs meets a certain point, then you've reached ikigai. And I realized a year ago that I've reached that point in my life. I absolutely love what I do. I absolutely love working with people and enabling people. And that's how I came to GT. It's exactly at that crossroad in my life that GT and I had discussions again, and they said, Trace, we believe your dream. I said, I believe we can do this together, guys. That's all I wanted, is I wanted support. I had so many people in life look at me crazy because I had these crazy ideas of focusing on people and not on money or technology. So that's exactly what ikigai is about. And like I said, I sneaked my motorbike picture in there. I would have thrown all my motorbike pictures in there, but I was being decent. So that's ikigai. And that brings me to the next really awesome thing. So you'll remember that in the slide I said that I want you to get to a point where you make that commitment. So together with GT, we've launched this whole new campaign where we said we're changing the way we're doing things. This is kind of our brand of saying we're putting up our hand, we're putting up this red flag and saying that we are going to make this this commitment. We are going to commit again to our clients, customers, to the people that we train, to the people that work for us, to our fellow employees, to our bosses, everyone. We want to make that commitment again. And you'll see, I truly believe that if you say I do, and if you make the commitment, you also say that I'm adopting, and I am going to adopt whatever it is that we're busy with. So for me, that's the first most important step, is taking that step. So very quickly, I'm going to run through what it is that we do different at the Academy. So a lot of text on these pages. I'll just read through some of these. I know that these sessions gets recorded as well, so you guys can grab a lot of the stuff there. But importantly is that we offer mentorship and coaching to support your team and ensure that you reach your goals. So we don't just train people. We do mentorship packages as well, where I work with the intranet managers and I actually teach them to replace me inside their businesses so that they can carry on with the good work and that they understand what the goals are that they have to meet. Another very, very important thing is that when it comes to the governance, we also look at helping the guys setting up their governance plans, their change management plans, training and communication plans, all of those things that they need in that little package deal to actually make the governance and the change management, because it's overall change management. Don't forget that governance is a component inside change management. Training is a component inside change management. We are not looking at change management as a bigger thing that actually helps us to build better solutions and to have better environments for people to work in. Then looking at the end user and focusing at them. So we fully believe that the end user should always be the focus and not the solution. So because of that, we really pay attention and we help the guys, we mentor the guys to how do they launch solutions, how do they communicate better with their users, and how do they get feedback and buy-in. There's no perfect checklist out there. You can't just give someone a white paper to fill in work form and they'll have perfect user adoption. It doesn't work like that. So we really pass on that skill to the guys so that they understand how that works. Now, why do we do this? And that's important. So firmly believe at GT, we say that an employee that's equipped with the correct skills to not only be effective, but efficient as well, will have high levels of psychological well-being and job satisfaction. That's very, very important. You can't just train them. You've got to do more than that. You've got to put more effort in that, because if they're happy with the environments that they're in, they'll be happy with the work that they do and they'll adopt your systems. So we believe that products and solutions cannot fix processes, because we know that people do that. And we know that standalone traditional SharePoint training will not ensure user adoption. And that's why we've added more to the mix. We cannot just train people. We have to mentor and grow people. We will not have success. So we know that users embrace technology when they're empowered and when they have a system that makes them look and feel good. Don't ever forget that. So nearly to finish off my presentation, I just want to share some results with you. And importantly, no lies. This is not that you have to listen to me. I just want to share what some of my students have said. These are not on the mentorship programs. These are normal SharePoint training students, and very close to my heart. These things make me feel very loved and wanted and know that I'm doing the right thing. So importantly, as one of my users said, I've obtained a skill on how to search better and the link between my PC and SharePoint. People forget how important that is. They forget how my PC and my stuff on my PC works with SharePoint. They don't understand the link between it. And I can promise you the thing I spend most time on is telling people how to search. We don't spend enough time on that. I've learned so much, not just about SharePoint, but how to use my PC effectively. Search tips, shortcuts, editing images, etc. I don't just train SharePoint. I train environments. I train what the people work on every day so they can use the tools that they have better together. So this training has helped me understand how useful SharePoint can be at work. It can make everyone's life easy. Training has developed my understanding of SharePoint and the value it brings into my workplace. It's developed my skills in data capturing and sorting and overall my PC skills. And then one of my favorites, and this was actually a guy that said it, he says, I love SharePoint. I used to hate it. He was very, very honest and very truthful, but that was definitely one of my favorite statements. So, takeaways very quickly before we get to questions. I said very important, documentation, communication, how to upskill your people, Keep your finger on the pulse. Measure what's going on and give feedback. I believe in the plan, do, check, act cycle. You have to go back and review. You have to go back and change. You have to go back and document. That's very, very important to me. Then just before we get to questions, I just want to say thank you. All the mentors in my life, as always. Of course, WikiHow, they were awesome with my little relationship pictures. And then as my credits come up, I always bring this up in my presentations. I always thank everyone that's had such a big role in my life. Don't forget to do that in your lives. Don't forget to say thank you to the people that's helped you get to where you are. So for now, that's the end of my presentation. I will thank you very much for sitting in and listening. And I'm pretty sure Melinda might be taking over.
Yes, thank you, Tracy. That was so great. I love how inspiring your presentations are. I love it. I wish I could watch that every day, honestly, to remind me of my relationship with SharePoint.
No, you can.
Yes,
that's cool.
We have had some questions coming in, so I'll go ahead and pop them up. And Warren, if you are still on and would like to chime in as well, that would be great. I'm just going to leave open mics for us as the presenters so we can just address the questions. And anyone else out there who wants to submit some questions, please feel free to get them in. Even if you're just sharing your sympathies and your stories, if there was anything you related to in the presentation like
Absolutely.
I do, we would love to hear it and discuss it. Tracy is here, so let's take advantage of that. So a lot of people have been asking about whether or not the presentation was recorded or will the slide deck be available? And the answer is yes. So we are recording the session. It will go out via email follow-up in the next few days to everyone who attended. And we generally post them to our YouTube channel as well. So if you want to find us on YouTube, you can do that, or you can go to gtconsult.com and find our YouTube channel link through that site. Okay, so we do have a question here. What are some existing quick win built-in and third-party apps that can support the keep the fire burning approach? So Tracy and Warren, any feedback you have there?
Okay, so I'm going to just jump the gun before Warren gets involved. Because I'm such a lover of all things out-of-the-box SharePoint, I definitely believe that there's a lot you can do in SharePoint before even looking at third-party tools. So if there's any third-party tools, Warren can have a chat about that after this. But if I can just say, and I think the mistake that we make is that we forget how useful certain things are. I remember I presented about 2 years ago and I spoke about superpowers, and I said one of the biggest flaws we have as people who get involved with SharePoint or any technology is that we start abusing our superpowers. So the more that you learn about SharePoint, the more powerful you become, the more everything becomes big and you start overcomplicating things and you forget that simple little things still add value. I always joke and say when someone stops me in the hallway and says, Trace, I would just like a birthday calendar, and then believe me, before 15 minutes has passed, I've built a whole new employee database. It's got a workflow running in the background, and it physically buys presents for people and parks their cars. And we tend to overcomplicate because we can. And sometimes you have to take a step back and just listen to what the user is saying. So if I think of quick wins, this is a bit off the park now, so I've got to just quickly think. I've got to see a list in front of me. So things that really works, because people don't quite navigate so nice between app sets, and I'm really talking about end users, guys. I'm not talking about people very skilled up. Is a favorites link. So favorites link web part on the landing page of your intranet. So you go and set the view to only show the links the users added. So there might be a couple of thousand favorites links in there, but the user will only see his links that he's added. So that kind of makes him go to the landing page, because his 10 or 15 links that he uses very often is actually there in a web part. Something else that adds a lot of value as well out of the box SharePoint is relevant docs web part. Really, really works well. And remember, don't try and deploy all of these at once. Give them something new every month. So now we're going to add the relevant docs web part. So now in one place, the user can see all the 10 or 20 documents that he last edited on the site. I mean, how amazing is that? He doesn't even have to go to the libraries or something to go and find it. If I think of a simple calendar, and then I'm going to pass back to you, because otherwise I'll just carry on the whole time and tell you what everything's amazing about SharePoint. But if I think of a calendar, something that I've put in place quite a lot for especially manufacturing or environments is that I use calendars for deadlines and reminders. So if we don't have to have reminders like physical workflow, they can actually set up a calendar and put the expiry dates of vehicles on there, or maybe expiry dates of training certificates, or when documents needs to be in. And they can write filtered views to say, show me all the licenses that are going to expire, or show me all the documents that's got to be indexed, or the reports or something. So that's a really valuable thing you can do with calendars. So I don't know if you want me to pass back maybe to Warren, if you want to add a couple of things, because I would just carry on, guys, you know that.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think third-party applications, and many people won't believe this coming out my mouth, but I don't believe third-party applications are necessarily the answer. I think Tracy's hit the nail on the head. I think the key is not to overcomplicate. Try find things that address a business need. You know, whether that's out of box, whether it's third party, it needs to address a business problem, and the end users need to see some value that these things are going to make their lives easier. I think a lot of guys that implement SharePoint try to sprint before they've even learned how to crawl and want to add process automation and make it as complex as possible. People love simplicity, and they only want to utilize things that they can see is going to save them time or make their lives easier in the day. Also keep in mind that users don't know what they don't know. So you might be investigating SharePoint and you're trying to sell it to business, but people have no idea what SharePoint is. So do your homework and understand what the business need is, and bring up some examples that they can see these things in action. That will always breed excitement, because the biggest evangelist within your business around a technology platform like SharePoint is the end user. You make one end user happy, they'll spread the word for you all around the business that everyone will jump onto the bandwagon.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. That's it. That's all we have for questions so far. So if anyone has any last minute questions they want to sneak in, please feel free. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And as I mentioned, the recording will be available. Thank you all so much for joining, and thank you to Tracy and Warren for taking time out of their late night to come and present to us.
Absolute pleasure from my side, obviously.
Only a pleasure from my side as well.
All right. Well, with that, I think that's it. We'll go ahead and wrap. So everybody, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Have a good evening, morning, afternoon, everyone.
Bye-bye.